So I have a Unity game up 2020. I'm going to create just a basic floor to walk around on because the third person controller will need a surface. Could be a terrain, of course, but I'm just going to grab a cube and I'm going to spread out this cube so it's kind of a walking surface. And I do want a material for that because the bright white is. There we go. I'll call it ground or here. That'll work. All right. So here's my base environment for the moment. And now I'm going to bring in existing assets and external character so that we can create a third person control experience. So I'm going to head up to the window and come on down to the package manager because there are a lot of different variations available on this. I'm going to use just the most recent one that allows us to go in and alter the way it looks the fastest. Now, I've already downloaded it in order to make the video a little faster, but this is the starter assets third person character controller. This is a Unity standard asset package for Unity 2020. I got in the Unity store, it's free. I'm going to go ahead and import it. When I do, the import will ask me to restart Unity because it's using a newer, more advanced control programming. So it will import and then it will ask me, hey, you need to restart Unity because I personally have the older control package installed. I haven't installed any new control packages. There we go. So in this case, it tells you how to permanently go backwards if you want to. I'm just going to restart for just this one game, which will install for the first time in this game the different control programming for this particular app. All right, and we're back. So I don't need the package manager anymore for this, and I will go ahead and bring in the new controller. Here we are with the starter assets inside the asset panel, and I'm interested in the third person controller, and the prefab is what I'm actually looking for. So the prefabs are here, and I'm going to use the nested prefab. So it's a nested parent armature, which is currently unpacked. So they left us this little label reminding me that I need to unpack it. I'll right click on it. I'll come on down to prefab and I will unpack this asset. This will allow me access to the internal components inside of it that I can reuse. Now this one, I'll start with the one we don't need, which is the control assets for Android. So if you have an Android tablet, you could install the game on the Android tablet. These would be the buttons on the actual surface of the Android tablet that you could reuse. But because I'm doing this in a standard PC, if I was to use these, they would block my ability to control the avatar. So I simply need to turn them off. So I'll simply uncheck them. I'm not going to throw them away. I don't need to throw them away. You could throw them away, but you don't need to. I am interested in the player armature. This is an animation armature for a humanoid character. And as you can see, I have a simple robot, which is the default robot that comes with Unity. I don't want to see the default robot because the default robot, well, everybody knows what it is. And it doesn't really help. If you do want to have a robot, then please choose a different robot than this one because just like a filter in Photoshop, everybody knows, everybody's seen this robot. Okay, well, I forgot to do something. So let me get out of the game here. I forgot to turn off my main camera. We were looking at the main camera there as I was walking around. So I'm going to turn off the main camera because there's already a main camera inside of the asset, which follows the character around. So we'll play that again. And the animation is already built into the asset. The jump, right, that we can see here as the character jumps, that's already built in. I've zoomed in a little bit too far here. Pardon me. That's already built into the animation. Turning and walking in specific directions already built in there. And of course, if I hold down shift, it will run. You might recognize these. This is an extension of the original first person all-in-one controller. So we now have an animated character. Every time the armature moves around, these already pre-programmed animations inside of Unity. And I could tell you so many stories about how difficult this used to be uphill in the snow both ways, 26 hours a day on one foot, while my other foot was delivering pizzas or something. But that is the general armature. Now I want to bring in a different avatar, a different representation of some kind. And I'm going to use a free online utility from Adobe. This is Adobe Mixamo. If I just log in with a Gmail or I create another account, Facebook account, Apple, or whatever, you can create a free account. It is a free account with Adobe. And if you already happen to have a different free account with Adobe, you could use that. I'm going to use my Google password and come on back in. And I did that earlier today so that we could skip me typing in my password and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm going to use the dummy because I could waste a lot of time looking through all the possible characters. If I select the characters here, all of these characters are free assets that you can download. You may have actually seen a few of them in other things. The boss has shown up in a couple of different places, and I even think that I could have sworn I saw a modified version of Sporty Grandma on a commercial somewhere, right? And you can then add. Normally, the whole point of this is that you can add animations to the avatar and then download the entire package. In my case, there's already animation in the starter asset, so it will not accept the starter asset itself. Won't accept the external animation without a decent amount of work. So even though this is a fun animation, it won't be available for use, right? So in order to use an avatar, I would need to make sure that I don't have an animation. So I'm going to come over here to the right and turn that off. And I'm going to go back and use the dummy as soon as I can remember where the dummy was. I believe it was on the first page there. Oh, characters, excuse me. Crash test dummy is around here somewhere. Ah, there it is. And I'll go ahead and bring the crash test dummy in here. And I want to leave it in the T-pose position because all I'm going to use is just the outside shell of it. And that's what I want. In order to get that, though, I'm going to come on over to download. I want to simply download the T-pose, and I'm going to download this twice. I want to use the FBX for Unity. I'll download that. So I'm going to head off to my downloads here, and that's my FBX for Unity. Pull that off to the side here. And then I'm going to download it a second time, the exact same thing a second time, because I want the image package that comes with this. So there's a set of textures that are wrapping this dummy that represent the orange crash test dummy onesie, the boots, the hands, the symbols on the head, and the rubbery skin tone on the outside of the crash test dummy. And I want that as well. So almost downloaded. So that'll be here. There we go. And that comes in as a zip because this is a multi-part element. So I'll unzip that for right now just so you can see it. And that has a DAE, or collada, three-dimensional design, which we won't actually be using. And then the textures or images that cover the dummy are right here. We will want those, which is why we downloaded both versions. I'm going to take those and I'm going to get them to the desktop because, as you may or may not know, trying to import something from your downloads folder doesn't always work very well due to security. Okay, so this is my folder where I'm going to save this. I have it on the desktop here as my dummy. I'm just going to drag two of those in, the textures and the non-PBR. Notice that I'm not bringing in the DAE or the zip document because we don't need them anymore. Head back to Unity. And here we are back in Unity. I'm going to head back to my assets panel. I'm going to make a folder. I want to actually, in this case, I do want a folder because it'll help keep things straight and will actually help Unity out. I'm just going to call it my dummy. Call it my avatar. It doesn't matter what the name is, but I do want to bring these things into the same folder to help Unity figure out what it is I'm doing. So I'm going to be here inside the folder. I'm going to right click and I'll import my asset, which is desktop, my dummy. And then I have my PBR, non-PBR, excuse me, which is the FBX model. And here it is. And you can see that it is essentially a prefab, which has a few things inside the prefab, including Mixamo animation and so on, although we didn't bring in any animation. And here's my dummy. Get this a little closer, and I can see that that's the model, right? It's very clear that that is the model that I brought in earlier. But as you can see, even though it's the FBX that I need in order for Unity to work properly, I don't have any textures on it. So I could just slap a solid raw texture on it, make it all one color, but that's a little bit boring. So I'm going to come back over to the assets panel and I'm going to import a new asset again. I'm going to find those images. I just want all of them. I'll import. And when I do, Unity is going to look at them and go, oh, I think I recognize something here. And in this case, the assets my dummy normal PNG wants to update and fix that, get it in the right position on the model. I'm going to allow Unity to do so. And when I do that, I can reselect my avatar. And you can see that, well, now the textures are properly mapped on top of the armature, or the asset, excuse me. And when I've done this, I believe that when I do this the first time, if you haven't seen this before, and you select the model right here in assets, you'll be able to see the entire model creation, which will include the model itself, rig, animation, and materials. Now, in this case, no animation. We don't have any animation because we don't want any animation, because we're going to use the animation that already exists in the asset. I do need to go to rig, R-I-G, and I need to help Unity out just a little bit. Instead of a generic, I want to use humanoid, because I am using a human style running character, and the robot is humanoid. If I try to overlay something that's not humanoid, doesn't have arms and legs, on top of something that does have arms and legs, the animations won't fit and the model will break. It might do something really interesting, but usually it just looks awful. Okay, I have to hit apply to update that. And then I want to come back to create from this model, and I want to click what is already checked, which is create an avatar definition, create from this model. Now, it seems unnecessary, but it is, because this model came from outside of Unity. It didn't come from the Unity asset store, so Unity needs a little help. Now, even though it's already checked, I need to make sure I click on it and hit apply one more time, because now it's going to rebuild that avatar so that it will actually match the entire color and dimension of whatever character I've brought in, as long as it's humanoid. I'm going to save here. And the moment I click, somewhere else, it's going to ask me this question: unapplied import settings for the dummy. I'm going to go ahead and apply them, because these import settings just match up the imagery, the normal model, the height map, and of course the outside texture to that frame. So this, just hit apply, I guess, but it is actually doing something of use. Okay. Now I still have the robot that came with the asset from the Unity store, and it's time to get rid of the robot. We're going to get rid of the robot and replace it with the dummy. In order to do that, here is the player armature. Let me get a little closer, right? The player armature is actually a lot of things together. It's the model, it's an inside set of bones which allow it to bend only in certain places while keeping other parts of the animation straight. It's the outside texture and the animations that are attached to it. And it includes the collision object, which is a very tall pill in order for you to collide with things. What I'm going to do is right click on that, and I'm going to come on down to prefab, and I want to unpack that completely, because I want to go into the armature and I want to delete just one specific part. And if it's still a prefab, if it's still packaged, then I would end up deleting the entire thing. I only want to come on in, select the armature mesh, right? And we know that a mesh is the triangular surfaces that make the outside of a three-dimensional object in a game. That mesh is represented and outlined here, so we can see the robot's actual mesh, and then we can see the sort of slab monolithic rectangle over it, which simply shows us the maximum amount of space that it's covering currently. I'm going to select that, right-click on it, and delete. I'll save. Now, at this point, you could actually play the game with a invisible avatar. You'd be able to run around, and the camera would just follow it and swing around it in a kind of unusual way. But I do want to bring in that avatar now. So I'm going to re-highlight geometry, which is what the previous armature was attached to. I'm going to click my prefab, hold, drag, and drop, make it sure it's the child of geometry. Okay, so we can see that it is the child of the geometry. This is great. We can see that it's replaced the robot with my decided model. And there's one more step. I'm going to go back to the armature. Here in the, let me drag this out a little bit further so we can see this a little bit better. The armature had the avatar built from the robot. So Unity still thinks that the robot is what it's trying to animate. I'm now going to go back to this avatar, click on the meatball, and find the avatar that I made just earlier. Remember when I clicked and I said it looks like it's already checked, but I need to click on it and hit apply again to help Unity out. When I was helping out Unity, it was building this avatar for me. I'm going to double click on that, and it is now available. I'll save and breathe deep. We're going to jump the shark on this one, make sure that it works, but I'm going to go ahead and push play. Wish me luck. Here we go. And there we go. The new character has replaced the robot. And now I can have my own unique decision for my particular game. That's something a little bit more interesting than just the robot, or suits my design as well. It does all the same things that the robot could do. So those animations are pretty well specific to the robot. It's just reusing those robot animations and applying it, or I'm sorry, applying the skin on top of the robot's armature. Of course, it jumps as well. I think I'll run away here and try to get to the edge of the board and fall off, because I'm just curious as to what happens when this thing falls for a great distance. Now I'm using the mouse. I can use the mouse to move the camera around. It's still a trailing camera, but as you can see, it allows me to look from pretty much straight above, and allows me to look from almost underneath and almost from the side. Oh, here we go. And away we go. Okay, well, interesting. I can't catch up. Turn it. Well, that makes sense. Okay, and there is our model. Okay, I'll save that. And that's the fastest free way to bring in a different avatar for a third-person game inside of Unity at the moment. Recording this as of spring 2022. So I'm sure they might make it even easier in the near future. But right now, there we go.